Good morning. My name is Garrett Duvall, and on behalf of Mike's family and Carrie, I'd like to thank everyone who's here today to join with them during this very brief moment in time, but an important time, to pause, to remember, and to reflect on Mike's life and legacy. Before we begin, I would like to ask if you do have a cell phone, if you would mind just making sure that's on silent so it doesn't go off during the service out of respect. And I'm going to invite Barb Rossi. She's going to be our celebrant today to lead us. But before we do, we're going to listen to a special song requested by the family just to get us all in the right mindset. So we'll play that song and then Barb will come forward.
Hi, everybody. My name's Barb Rossi, and I'm honored to be the celebrant today during our time together, remembering Mike Johnson. On behalf of Mike's family, I welcome you and thank you for being here. Your presence is important because it will be the memory of the friends who stood by them during this time that will be a source of strength and consolation as they carry their grief. We also remember today those who can't be with us as we pay our respects to Mike, whether they're separated from us by circumstance or distance or loss. And thank you as well to the directors and staff here at Flint for their caring service to the family during this time. So I hope you've had a chance to see some of the personalized reminders of Mike that are around today. There are some framed photos. There's, of course, that video slideshow, jersey, and I think there's a can of Genesee Light in the casket as well. Unfortunately, we don't have the taxidermied bobcat. I know we had talked about that. Hopefully a lot of you have gotten to see that as well. And if you were here yesterday during visitation hours, you heard a great mix of some of Mike's favorite songs, including some classic rock, some country, Tom Petty and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And then, of course, just now we heard One More Day by Diamond Rio. Later in the service, we're going to hear from some loved ones, and there will be time to share memories or stories of Mike's life. And we hope some people can come forward to share. Also, just for some housekeeping, Mike's family's chosen to have donations in his name sent to the American Cancer Society. We do have some pre-addressed envelopes out front if anybody is interested. If you haven't already, make sure you sign that register book, pick up a prayer card that has Mike's photo on it and a poem chosen by the family, and they've also chosen to have it read out loud today. It's called A Beautiful Life, and it says, "A beautiful life that came to an end. He died as he lived, everyone's friend. In our hearts, a memory will always be kept of one we loved and will never forget." And we just need to acknowledge that we come together today with a range of emotions. It's absolutely normal right now for you to feel anger, to feel scattered, to feel the injustice of a life that's gone too soon, or to not really know what you feel from moment to moment. You know, our hearts ache and our minds can go numb. It's messy and it's complicated. And there really aren't the appropriate words to express your shock, your pain, your grief. And yet, here there is also love and connection and the desire to help each other suffer less. Here there are many questions, some of them involving the word why. And it's human nature to want to have all the answers to the questions, but we come together today with none, and that's not really our goal today. Today, we just hope to begin the process of taking refuge in each other, of finding some solace in people who also love Mike. We can pledge today not to dwell on the questions that we cannot answer, but instead focus on some of the questions that we absolutely can. Some of those being, what do I need in order to start healing or continue healing? What does the family need, and how can I help with that? How can I be of service to others who are suffering? And what will be of greatest benefit in this moment? So I had the opportunity to meet with Carrie and Kaylee in order to prepare for today's service, and they talked about the life that Mike created for himself and those close to him. And they told stories about hard work and fun times together, and most importantly, taking care of the people you love. They said that he was a loving husband, father, and grandfather, and that he was a joker with a good sense of humor. They talked about his personality, that he was mostly laid back, except when it came to his tools. He waxed a little OCD about those tools, and if you borrowed one, you had to be sure to put it right back where you found it. Same with the TV remote. They said that he was always concerned about his loved ones. Even when he was sick and needed care, he wanted to be sure that everyone else was okay. So we're going to start with a small candle lighting. You know, we light candles in honor of our loved ones who've gone before, because that flame symbolizes the memory that lives in us, the memory of that person's light. So I invite Carrie, Kaylee and Dylan, Brian and Xana and Macy to come forward, and we're each going to light a candle. I'm sorry, I was also supposed to invite Deb to come forward to light a candle. Sorry about that. We're thankful for this ability to hold space with each other. In lighting these candles, we hope to pave the way for healing and peace to be with us all. Let this light signify the love and memory of Mike for all of us who have gathered today. So we're going to share some of Mike's story. Michael Edward Johnson was born on November 26, 1970, in Rochester, New York. He was the youngest of two children, born to Edward and Donna Easton Johnson, with his older sister, Deborah. His family lived in Rochester, but soon moved back to this area, as his father, Edward, was from here. And Edward eventually built a house on the Pinnacle Road in Addison, where his children grew up. During Mike's childhood, he rode dirt bikes, and he was very athletic, playing soccer, basketball, and baseball, becoming a standout athlete in school. He went all the way through Addison schools and graduated from Addison High School with the class of 1989. In the spring of Mike's sophomore year in high school, he wrote a note to Carrie Peoples, who was a freshman at the time, and he asked her to go to an upcoming dance with him. They knew each other only because it was a small school and everyone knew everyone, but they hadn't had any relationship before that point. She agreed to go to the dance with him. They had their first kiss the night of the dance, and they were together ever since. They were true high school sweethearts. I think there's a picture in the slideshow of them later on at a prom, which has been mistaken for a wedding photo because Carrie wore a white prom dress. And notably, Mike has a mullet and a mustache in that picture as well, appropriate for the times. Once Carrie and Mike were together as teenagers, they spent every weekend with Carrie's sister and brother-in-law, Tammy and Mike Wooldridge. Mike and Mike would play video games until 4 a.m. Carrie and Tammy's dad raced cars at Woodhull Raceway, and Mike helped him maintain the car, were part of his pit crew. Mike and Mike did a lot of crazy stuff together, from what I hear, and Some of those stories are just not appropriate to share today. Mike and Carrie got married at the Methodist Church here in Addison on February 15th, 1992, on Valentine's Day weekend. They went to Michigan on their honeymoon to go snowmobiling and continued to snowmobile together and with friends in the years to come. After high school, Mike had gotten a job at Sears for a few years working on lawnmowers. He took some college classes at Corning Community College, but at that point he was working full-time, trying to go to school, and he and Carrie had had their first baby at home, Kaylee. Mike developed an interest in computers and eventually started his career as an IT specialist at Corning Incorporated, where he worked for over 20 years. Outside of work, Mike and Carrie started their family, having their first 2 children, Kaylee and Brian, and years later having Macy. As a father, Kaylee describes Mike as being very present for his kids, always concerned for them. He wanted to make sure they ate well, that they got enough sleep, that they took good care of themselves, mentally, physically, emotionally. Kaylee said she and Mike frequently butted heads, but it was really because their personalities were very similar. Carrie and Mike's son, Bryant, started racing dirt bikes when he was 4 years old. As he progressed, the family started spending every weekend traveling and camping at his dirt bike races. Over the years, the family progressed from tent camping, then they upgraded to a truck camper, to a regular camper, and finally to a toy hauler. And Mike was a true outdoorsman. You could often find him traveling around on his side-by-side, four-wheeler or snowmobile. He always looked forward to hunting season and harvesting the efforts of his food plots, where he planted oats for the deer in the summer and then hunted on the land in the fall. The hunters in the family went on that bobcat hunt this year and got one, which was exciting for all of them and made great memories. Macy got her hunting license this year, and it sounds like her brother and her grandpa are looking forward to taking her out hunting and continuing that legacy. Mike built a garage, and he spent countless hours working on endless restorations. He did restorations of tractors, old snowmobiles. He liked vintage sleds that hooked to the back of the snowmobiles. Bryant would spend time in the garage with his dad, and his family said that the time that he spent there was some of his happiest. And it seems like these stories about him keep coming back to just the simple things in life, connecting with nature, spending time with your beloved family, watching a new generation of grandchildren grow, the really important things. I believe that you were so lucky to have known him, and I think he was very fortunate to have had all of you as well. So before we open it up for memories and stories, we're going to hear from a couple of loved ones. First one is going to be Mike Woldridge. Mike, you can come forward.
It's really not that long. It's a lot of pages. Last week when Carrie approached me about coming up here today and saying a few words, very overwhelming. Countless memories of all the things we did together just come rushing back. We worked together, we played golf, we hunted, fished, rode ATVs, dirt bikes, snowmobiles, worked on the race car, played basketball, softball. We were in each other's weddings. We had bottle rocket fights, blew things up with quarter sticks, and along the way we may have enjoyed a few beers. Where one of us was, the other wasn't far behind. Many of these memories were of the two of us, young men, doing somewhat juvenile things, but nonetheless, they were funny as hell. Mike and I met around 1987, and upon that meeting, we had our first beer. has started a lifelong friendship. As stated, Mike loved all things outdoors, unless that meant kicking my ass at video games, which he took a lot of delight in. On one occasion, Mike approached me about a dream snowmobile trip to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And of course, I said, hell yes, let's go. So Mike and Carrie, Tammy and I, Gary and Karen Rexford, got into our Pathfinder and we headed to Michigan. Upon arrival, we found that Mike had gotten us a fantastic cabin rental. There were just feet of snow. The trails were awesome. We rode along the Great Lakes. Spent the entire week out there. Young men and sometimes the women would go with us, just having the time of our lives. It was an excellent trip. Oh, and I forgot the most important part. It was also Mike and Carrie's honeymoon. I remember one instance playing video games at an apartment that Tammy and I had in Elmira Heights. And this is where the juvenile stuff kicks in. While playing video games, someone noticed that the toilet had become plugged. So being a young couple, Tammy and I did not own our own plunger. So Mike and I jumped in the car and off to Kmart we went. Upon arriving at the plunger aisle, which there were 20, 30 different designs and styles, and how does one select a plunger? Is there a test that you do on it? Well, we decided let's see if it would stick to the floor. And upon doing that, it made the loudest fart sound we had ever heard in our lives, and we could not stop laughing. So now you picture the two of us trying to get this thing loose from the floor. I can only imagine what the people on the security camera were saying, and hopefully they got a laugh out of it too. We were unable to release it. Mike looked at me and said, "That's the one I'd get." So we pulled one off the shelf and headed to the checkout. Yeah. Mike and I also found ourselves spending tons of time working on the 5K race car. And along the years, there was also a truck thrown in there. You know, and it wasn't always easy because it seemed like every one of those race cars needed body work every single week. But with Mike and I's leadership, Ken found the winner's circle. As we gained Ken's trust, we were given the honor of hauling his prized race cars to the track by ourselves. Ken's old red Ford truck had some noisy lifters. So our goal wasn't just to get the car there unharmed, but it was also to see how loud we could make those lifters hammer by the top of that hill. We found success ticking our way into the pits. Over the years, Mike and I worked together at a couple different locations, first Sears, and recalling a memory from our days at Sears. This isn't necessarily work related, but it does have to do with us being down there, and my cousin Diana had purchased a white dresser for her daughter. And Diana, knowing that Mike and I worked at Sears, she just asked if we could pick this dresser up and bring it to her. So Mike had a truck and he was always looking to help people out, so he said, absolutely, we've got this. So at the end of our shift, we loaded the dresser. Mike said, well, we need to put something around it, protect it. He went to his Sears van, got this quilted packing blanket. We wrapped it up really nice and tied it down, and off we went. Sounds like a pretty simple task, but as always, Mike and I turned it into an adventure. Headed down Route 15 near the Lindley Junction, Mike said, what are those lights in my rearview mirror? Were we being pulled over? No, the dresser was on fire. Mike quickly whipped his truck off to the side of the road, bouncing off a guardrail a couple times before he got stopped. He jumped out of his, I crawled out the window, we were up against the guardrail. So we got the fire out and didn't really know why this happened, and then Mike said, oh my gosh, that blanket out of my truck had oil and gas on it. A cigarette butt thrown out the window is what started it. So thankfully we were able to deliver the dress to Diana. I thought it had a little more character with the scorching and whatnot, so she wasn't too upset with us. Another job, we worked together in Bath. Mike and I started working on computers way back then. Part of the job was to drive from school to school, working on computers, AV equipment, phone systems. And we decided one day that it would be a good idea, well, looking back now maybe not, but a good idea to bring our hunting rifles to work and sneak them into the company vehicle so we could hunt woodchucks as we made our way across through Bend County from school to school. We didn't get in any trouble, so everything worked out well with that. I could go on and on. I've been talking with everyone about all of the things that we did together, and I did want to just take a moment to say that. Sorry. None of the good times I had with Mike would have been possible had Mike and I not fallen in love with Tammy and Carrie. They allowed Mike and I to be who we were, putting up with our shenanigans and allowing us to enjoy life. For that, I say thank you. As time marched on, Mike and I were forced to grow up, if only a little bit. Our times together became more tame, but no less special. We turned our attentions to our families. Mike threw down roots in Hedgesville with Carrie, where they started their family. Mike became a loving husband, father, and eventually a grandfather. His love for Carrie, Caleb, Bryant, Macy, Dylan, Xana, and his grandchildren is undeniable. Mike, from me to you, I will never forget you. I will smile. I will smile and laugh, remembering you, my brother. Godspeed.
Thank you. Now, Deb or Bill, whichever of you wants to, can come forward.
Hi, everybody. Mike, wonderful, my man. For those that don't know me, my name is Bill from California. Michael is my brother-in-law. Married his sister a couple years ago, but his sister and I have been together for quite some time. I first off want to send my condolences, my sympathy, my prayers, and my love to the family. I know it's hard. I mean, it's hard on me sitting here watching him from the time that I knew him. I don't have memories like you, Mike, and the good memories I was hoping to build with him on them. About a year ago, I flew in for the first time out here to New York after I was with his sister for many, many years. But I flew out here for the first time last year. Ed, thank you very much for Deb and I staying at your place and hosting us and everything. But one thing I remember, and it's a character and a testament to this gentleman, Michael, and I love you, is the first time, I met him years ago at his grandparents', I believe it was their 50th anniversary. Really didn't get to talk too much or build any rapport, any friendship. So when I flew in a year ago, and I remember Deb, my wife, saying, I'd be pulling up to this garage, which is something he adored and loved. And from the moment that I walked through that door, I was greeted by his family and by Michael. And Michael, with, like I said, the way he was, embraced me. We got along. We had some beers, of course. And the few days that I was down here, he really made those days memorable. And we had made the trip to come out here this year in hopes of building on those memories. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen. And I wished it did. But I just want to say, from the time that I was here and the entire family, you guys have been excellent. I have a hell of a dad that loved you guys, thought the world about. And I just wish I had more time to build those memories with them. Love you, Michael. I'm going to have a beer for you, my man. Rest in peace, and I love you. And again, my prayers and condolences and thoughts to the family. Thank you.
I invite Christopher to come forward to speak.
Good morning. For those that don't know me, my name's Christopher Davis, and I'm Carrie and Mike's nephew. I met my Uncle Mike back in 1995. It's the craziest story. Carrie and Mike were, 23, 25, and I was just born. Growing up, Carrie and Mike were like my second set of parents. If anyone knows my family, they know that family is everything to us. Between Tammy and Mike, Carrie and Mike, and my own parents, I had 6 people always telling me what to do. Mike was the strict uncle who had the cool stuff. We loved going to his and Carrie's house during the winter because they had the best hill to sled down and the coolest snowmobiles to cruise on. Some of my fondest memories from my childhood are hanging in Mike and Carrie's little garage, the one they used to have, listening to music, and looking at Mike's posters on the ceiling of half-naked women. When we weren't in the garage, we were usually in the house. The adults were playing cards, and us kids were either raising hell in the living room, blasting CMT, or playing with Mike's cards, which were just mini posters of half-naked women. If I wasn't at home or at my other aunt and uncles, you could find me at Carrie and Mike's. When Kaylee and I had sleepovers at her house, we never went to bed early. We always stayed up all night and would sneak downstairs to make ramen noodles and chocolate milk, and I swear that every single time we did that, Mike caught us. At one point, we were genuinely convinced that he was an alien. Another fun story, one day Kaylee, Kenzie, and I decided to go on an all-day excursion through the woods behind their house. And when we finally got back, Mike greeted us by the field with a swift kick in the ass. We never did that again. My Uncle Mike was an intelligent man who loved his family fiercely. My heart breaks for my aunt, their kids, and their grandkids, because let's face it, 52 years on this earth is just simply not enough time. What does bring me comfort is knowing that now he's taking care of my brother. He loved him as though he was another son. And I know that it was really hard when Jake passed. And as my mom recently said, Mike had the best angel waiting for him. To everyone who knows and loves Mike, I know that one of the hardest parts of watching Mike and his family go through this was that no one had any control over what was going on. But today is the day that we get to take back some of that control. From this day forward, we get to control how we honor Mike, his life, and his legacy. And I don't know about you all, but I would say that Mike would want us to continue loving his family fiercely, living our own lives to the fullest, and drinking a Jenny Light or two. In Native American culture, when a great one passes, signal fires are lit around the world. And I can promise you all that tonight, a signal fire will be lit, because Mike, you were a great one.
Thank you. I invite Dylan to come forward to speak.
How is everybody today? For anybody that don't know me, I know most of you guys. I'm Mike's son-in-law. I don't have the memories that most of you guys had with him. Very nice, Mike, Bill, Chris. But I did have the pleasure of marrying his daughter and being a part of his life for about almost 10 years now. And he was a great man. And a lot of people don't have good relationships with their in-laws, and that wasn't the case. Mike and Carrie, they treated me like their son from day one, and I can't thank them enough for that. But anyways, I just want to thank you, Mike, for creating this beautiful life and family that I get to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you. And I invite Steve to come forward to speak.
Some of you know, Mike and I have known each other for a long time. Just kids in grade school, fourth grade, and a lot of crazy stuff together. Had a lot of fun. And then as the years pass, him and I made a promise that I wouldn't do what I'm doing right now. Up here, I made him a promise that I'd have fun and celebrate him being with us. He said, don't weep over me. Go have fun, have a few beers for me, and remember the good stuff we did together. And there's been a lot of it. A lot of good memories. Him and Lou, Mike and Tammy, rise a bunch of that later in the years. Kaylee and Dylan, laugh. We wanted to buy a side-by-side as we got older. I mean, he had four-wheelers and dirt bikes and all kinds of stuff. And my wife and I had to live down south, and we'd come home. It wasn't every weekend. It felt like it was every weekend. Just so we could come home, go to the races with Mike and Tammy, Carrie and Mike. Kind of was racing all over the place, and we'd have a blast. So Mike bought a side-by-side, so obviously I had to have one too. Of course, for whatever reason, Carrie and Jen always had to do their hair, but we were going on a side-by-side ride. And along toward the end of the side-by-side ride, they always wanted to drive. So Mike and I set them up really good. Yeah, you can drive. Up behind their house, there's a huge mud hole. I told them, look, you get to that mud hole, don't let off. Because if you let off, you're gonna get stuck. Of course, like I said, they always had to have their hair done. So they hit this mud hole about wide open on that side-by-side. And all we seen was mud. We didn't even see the side-by-side no more. It came right up over, right through the windshield, right? Covered both of them. They get the other end of it. Mike and I are sitting on this end just dying laughing. They both turn around, now their hair's all nice and flat, and the mud is running right off their face. And they called us a few choice names, obviously. They knew we'd set them up at that point. That was some of the stuff we'd always done our whole life. Had a lot of fun, enjoyed it. Bobby Davis, he's part of the memories too. I don't know if he remembers Mike getting us stuck and we had to get out, actually push my own car out because Mike was driving. And he wouldn't get out of the driver's seat, so I could drive. And that one actually happened a long time ago, but it was a lot of fun, good memories. I'm gonna miss my old buddy. Love you, buddy.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open it up and give a chance for family and friends to come forward to share a memory or story. If you can, come up and speak into the microphone. If not, if you wave at me, I can bring the microphone out to you. Or, yeah, we just want to make sure that we speak into the microphone so that the people in the other room can hear us as well. All right, we'll give some time.
I think everybody knows I'm Michael's dad. I don't have anything prepared, but a couple thoughts that came to mind. I'm not going to reflect on his life as he's grown up, or we'd be here forever. But I want to reflect on the last few days of his life, just a little bit, because almost all of us spent those days with him, mostly in New York, at the hospital. And towards the end, just a few days before he passed, Mary and I was alone with him in his room. And he said, "Dad and Mary, I want you to know I love you." And that doesn't sound like much, but he didn't say that much very often. And he told Mary, he said, "You're such a good person for my dad." I didn't know how to take that. I think he meant, you keep him in line. But you're good at keeping him in line. But the reason I tell you that is because of what he said next. He said, "Dad and Mary, I love all the people and what they're doing, but I'm not good at telling them." He said, it's just not me. So I want you all to know how he felt about all of you, because he had the love, he cared, but if you knew Mikey around him, he couldn't tell you that. And it had a couple benefits. I think Tammy and Jen arranged one at Indian Hills, and Kaylee had one. And a lot of people donated and gave him things. He appreciated that so much. Some of those people that he knew very poor, young and old, would give $10 or $20, and that warmed his heart. Because he knew that was a lot of money to them. Somebody gave him a beautiful quilt. And the couple and the lady made the quilt. And he just loved that. And I gotta tell you one more little story. Somebody wanted to make a very large donation during the benefit. So they came to Mary and me, and they said they wanted to make a large donation, but they wanted it to be anonymous. So they wrote out a check to me, and Mary put it in our account. We made out a check to Michael from us, so he wouldn't know who it was from, and in the memo we wrote from anonymous. And this is what happened. We went over to the garage where we always went, our meeting place. We handed Michael that check. He looked at that check with only our name and anonymous, and he looked up at us and he said, I'm not going to tell you what. He said, thank so-and-so and so-and-so. And to this day, we have no idea how he knew who that was from. It's something that came to him, and he was right, and we didn't tell him he was right. We just turned around and we didn't say, how did you know, or anything. But he appreciated it, small and large. And I think my point that Michael would like to have me make on his behalf, most of you have children, most of you have loved ones, and it's hard to tell them you love them. But I think he would like to tell you, don't wait too long, because his last days were just absolute hell. And he waited to then to tell me and other people things that he really wanted them to know. So that's what came to mind. Sometime, if and I know a lot of you, I see you, I can tell you stories way beyond what these people told you. And you told me things that I didn't know. As his dad, we have never, ever lived more than a mile apart. 52 years. He lived with me until he got married, and then he bought the old Wheaton house in Edgersville, a mile down the road, and we've been there ever since. We text each other every day. I know some of you know him very well, but I know him differently, I think, than anybody does. And just so many memories, which I'll never forget. I'm sorry I didn't have anything prepared, but I just wanted to pass that along. Thank you.
Anyone else? I don't want to cut anyone off. Okay. Now's not the right time. Be sure you are sharing your memories and stories with the family. So, during our family meeting, it's really clear that this is a family who has each other's backs. Even in their exhaustion, they're clearly supportive of each other, and they've been present for Mike throughout his journey. And they remembered with a lot of love and humor about his general presence in the world. And I believe that this same tangible support is going to be so valuable in your healing going forward. I hope that your family bonds carry you with grace through the early stages of grief and into the coming years while you adapt to your new lives. And to those here who showed up to support Mike's family, they thank you again, and they're going to need you. Please be in touch with them, and don't be afraid that you're going to say the wrong thing in the next weeks and months and years, because they need your presence, your ability to hold space with them, and your willingness to speak Mike's name while they grieve. So they've chosen today also to have the Lord's Prayer to honor the faith within the family. So if you know it, please say it with me. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. As we close our time here today, we remember that while we say goodbye to Mike's body, we're not saying goodbye to his personality, or his character, or his spirit, or his impact on those whom he cared for, all of which will live with you in your thoughts and memories. And as you go back out into the world after this, I ask that you're gentle with yourselves and with each other, that you give each other grace and space for each other's coping, and that you are a refuge for each other. We'll continue to send love and support to the family, as well as all those who knew and cared for Mike. And Mike, we thank you for the gifts that you have given to your family. Your influence will be seen for generations in your loved ones' every interaction, as Carrie, Kaylee, Brian, and Macy care for each other and parent the next generations with your influence. We leave Mike in peace, and we bid him a loving farewell. And I thank you so much. It's been such an honor. Garrett Duvall is going to come forward to give instructions for those joining the family at Hedgesville Cemetery. And then we'll have, as everyone's paying their respects, we'll have one final song. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. So momentarily, we'll be processing to Hedgesville Cemetery. I just ask everyone that will be joining us to please just make sure you do have your headlights and flashers on for safety. And the cemetery is very tight, so we'll be parking on the road. So please just be cautious as you make your way to the cemetery. Before we depart, I would like to make sure that everyone knows that after the time at the cemetery, you're welcome back to Mike's Garage for a time of fellowship and time to gather together. So I'd strongly encourage everyone, if you can make that, to join that time. And what we do now is ask if you'd like to come forward to briefly have a moment at the casket before we leave. Just please be courteous of the time. We do have to leave in about 10 minutes. So if you could just allow the very immediate family to be the last in the room here today with Mike so they can have that private moment. So please come forward, have your time, and then if you'd make your way out to your vehicles promptly. Thank you.